Today we're here to talk about IBM's latest release of 7.6.1.2 of Maximo. So presenting today is Tori Foley, who is in the Cincinnati area today, and I'm in the Atlanta area. We'll be doing the presentation. Now, there's other Maximo presentations out there on 7.6.1.2, and while we have slides, we're not going to focus on the slides. We wanted to provide you a little bit different experience where we actually roll up our sleeves and get into the software and show you how the software works, as well as maybe make some comments on what we think about the enhancements in the new release. So we tried to give you a little bit more for your money. So Maximo 7.6.1.2 was released in late July by IBM, and it's available to those who are on a subscription annual maintenance, and it's the latest shipping version of Maximo. One thing to remember is that if you're on Maximo 7.6.0.9, 0.10, or anything earlier than that, those software versions will be at end of service September 2021. So if you're on 7.6.0.10, for example, in September of next year, it's time to start thinking about moving to a newer release of Maximo, simply because end of support and end of service will be in place at that time. So a lot of you have seen a slide like this, which is IBM's portfolio of Maximo products. And we're going to be focusing on the enhancements that were put in the core product up here, Maximo EAM, but replicate through all of these, because anything really in base speaks for everything in all of the other industry solutions. But one of the things I wanted to mention here, although it's not the focus of this presentation, is that if you notice the purple boxes at the bottom, those are an indication of where IBM's headed. And you'll see these one-word products like Maximo Monitor, Maximo Health, Maximo Predict, and so on and so forth. And this is kind of the new naming convention they're having for what they're calling their Maximo application suite of products. So what was Maximo Asset Health Insight is now just going to be shortened to Maximo Health. And so they're taking on a new naming convention. And so everything up on top is going to be essentially called Maximo Manage. So when you look out into 2021, you'll hear people talk about Maximo Manage, and that's going to represent the whole package of everything that really was in blue as it becomes part of the Maximo application suite, which they'll call version 8. There will be an optional licensing model. So in addition to your traditional authorized, limited, and express, IBM is coming out with what's called a committed term license based on points. That's not the focus for this presentation, but it's something that we'll be presenting in a future at a future date to give you insight on where IBM's headed with that. So, but again, the focus here is on Maximo 7.6.1.2. So when one of the things that IBM did is they addressed 600 what they call APARs, or enhancement requests. And you can download this from the Knowledge Center at IBM. And what we did is we put a little pivot table against it just to see where those 600 were coming from. And we looked at some of the top ones. So many things in work order tracking, the graphical scheduling and graphical assignment are really scheduler. And assets had 17, but if you download that, I recommend that you put it in a pivot table. Then you can just click on the number 17 in that pivot table and it'll open up and it'll show you the specific things that were fixed in, say, assets or purchase orders or work execution. But I think IBM did a great job addressing many of these enhancement requests and fixes in Maximo 7.6.1.2. So we're really going to focus on a couple of things here, and the way I broke it down was really talking about the improvements that IBM did to classic applications in Maximo, and also then talking about the enhancements they made in this new Work Center set of applications. So if you're unfamiliar with the Work Center applications, you'll get a taste of it here. but really I think that was the best way to break it down. And so if you look at the architecture, just to set the table, classic Maximo, when you go into your start center and then launch into, say, work order tracking, that's a classic application. It's going to come in and go through the user framework and interact with both the Maximo objects as well as the database. When you come in through a work center, you come in a different way. You come in through what's called a REST API. It's really going through the MIF, and that's how Maximo accesses the Maximo work objects, which then connect to the database. So the way that you get in Maximo from a work center versus classic is different, and I just thought I'd lay that out in simple form so everybody has got the same baseline. So now we're going to start the demonstration, but for everything that Tori and I do in the demonstration, there's going to be a PowerPoint behind it. So if you try, when you get 7.6.1.2 within the pride of your office and on your server, you'd be able to play along with this and reproduce some of this, but you'll have a PowerPoint presentation to go along with it. So we picked 7 things that were enhanced in classic Maximo applications. You can see them here. I'll cover the first 3. Tori will cover 4 and 5, and then I'll return to cover 6 and 7. Okay. So and then what we'll do is we'll go into the work center applications, and this slide will come back up when we get to that part. So let's go ahead into Maximo. I'll just log in here using my Maximo mat handle. And one of the first things we wanted to do was to just talk about the ability to add multiple images and multiple attachments at one time. So for example, if you go into assets today, we'll pull up an asset. And if I look over here, I currently have one attachment in there, which happens to be a website video. We'll get to that in a second. If I go to add new attachments, you now have this select files button. Wasn't there before in previous versions of Maximo. When you hit it, you can browse. I'll just go to my desktop, and I've got a few out here. So I can just hold down Shift or Control, and it's the same behavior. If you want to skip them, you can hold down Control and hit one at a time and pick the ones you want, or you can hit Shift and it'll pick everything between the 2 that you've picked. So when I hit OK, and then load those into Maximo, when I go to see my attachments now, all of those have been loaded at once. So you can load multiple attachments to any record in Maximo that has the attachment button. Now, a couple of things that we noticed: you can't rename the files on entry. Whatever they're named on your at your source is what they'll be named at when they're attached. And they all go into the same folder, right? So for example, if I had, I just had it in the attachments folder and right here. But if I had picked something else, it would all go, they would all go into that one folder. So I can't pick which file goes where and put them in separate folders. They are all brought into one folder that you're pointing to at the time you bring them in. So we thought that was a pretty neat feature. The next thing we wanted to talk about, let me just go back to the Start Center, was the new drill down capability. So just returning to the PowerPoint for just a second. Here we go, and switch. You remember the existing drill down, you had 2 tabs, locations and an asset tab. Now in Maximo, I say go into locations, and I open my drill down. You now see, this is optional, by the way. You can still have, there's a system property that says whether or not you want to go into this mode or not. But here, there's no second tab. All the locations, assets, and even spare parts are shown in one hierarchy. So if I fold this on down, you'll see when I start getting into assets, assets are blue, locations are red. When I open up an asset, the spare subassemblies are shown as nested, its parent, and then down below, you'll see all the spare parts as well as any PMs that are there, okay? And you have the ability to drag and drop one asset from where it is in the tree. You can see here it says I've grabbed one. The line is red, meaning it's an illegal move because I'm on itself. If I move it someplace that's a legal move, the line turns to green and I can drop and move that location. I get a confirmation of where I'm moving it from and to. I can move it in the tree, okay? The parts, the spare parts and the PMs go with it as well. Now, this is a lot of people that are administrators will think, well, that's a good thing for me, but if you've worked hard on your asset and location hierarchy, you don't want everybody going in and moving things around in this manner. So my read on this is that first off, the setting to say which drill down you're getting is it's one way or the other. So you're going to have it for all users one way or for all users the other way. And it would be nice if the way that was set up was, hey, have it optional, kind of like left-hand navigation. Some users want it, some people don't. Some people might want the old location hierarchy. Some people might want the new drill down capability. But we did do this. You can put security on it. So if I remove the SIG option to not allow the move modify asset, then we tested that, and when you would try to relocate it in the tree, it would say you're not authorized to do that. So we thought that was a good thing. So one other thing to note here, let me open this back up, is that when you're on a spare part, just keep your eye over on this side. When I click this, I'll get view item availability. So I'm able to view item availability right from the drill down, which is good. And if you're on an asset or a location, you still have this view work details. So I can see any work, preventive maintenance work, routes, inspections that are being done on there. That was there before. They've just changed the location of where it is on the screen. Okay. The other thing to note is this. If you look at this OK button right here, you'll see a little upside down caret on it. And that changes depending on what you're on. So if in the old drill down, it'll just say OK with no caret. If I'm, say, on a location like this, I can say here and I can launch to that location right from here. If I'm on an asset, the options change. I want to launch to an asset application, and even still, if I am here on a item of inventory, I go to item master. So those are some capabilities of the new drill down. It wasn't apparent that you can change your colors easily. I didn't see any parameters in there. There likely are, but I didn't see them on the surface where I wanted to maybe change the color of my drill down and assets be a different color and locations be a different color. Everything else seems to be pretty much the same, but that's our feedback on the drill down. Okay. So 1 second. So a couple comments on that worth noting. Here we go. Maybe this mode is okay for this. So the deck has a lot of good detail in it. There are a couple of things to note here, that there are some parameters. One is called this fetch size and another one is the fetch limit. So if you didn't want to see all nodes under the tree, you could set your fetch limit so you only saw a finite number. The fetch size is how many nodes you're gonna see at any one time. So if I had my fetch size to 2, it's gonna show 2 children and then show load more, show 2 more at a time until it gets to the limit. Okay. by default, that property is set to 50 for both fetch size and fetch limit. Okay. Turn that on to Maximo. Go to System Properties, to Filter. Just look for drill. What you want to do, here's your fetch limit and fetch size. And by default, Maximo 7.6.1.2 has this extend drill down set to false. If you turn it to true, then you'll see the new one. But again, it applies to everybody. Okay. All right. Now we'll move on to storeroom hierarchies. Okay. Let's just get to that. It keeps resetting, but we'll get to it. Here we go. So storeroom hierarchies right here. So in prior versions of Maximo, there was no way to really put storerooms in a hierarchy and describe the physical and the reordering relationships between storerooms. In addition, there was no way, say, from item masters to create multiple items in storerooms and update all the reorder points and other values like primary vendor, issue, and order units and things like that. We're going to demonstrate that. And there was no way to really limit the number of items that could be, no way to specify that items in one storeroom had to be ordered from another, okay? So what IBM did was they added to the storeroom application the ability to assign a parent, given it the hierarchy, just like in assets or locations. And even work orders are hierarchical. Now storerooms can be. Also, there was a reorder from field that was added. In an item master, there's a new capability to add items to multiple storerooms. And we're going to show you that now. So go back to Maximo and go to our storerooms. And I'll just hit return. And I'll pull up central storeroom here. Central storeroom, you'll see the fields here. Parent, oops, sorry. This is where you can define the parent storeroom, and here's this field here for defining which storeroom I reorder from. So how's this used? If I look at these two at the bottom, which are storeroom mat 1 and 2, when I click on this, you'll see that the mat 1 has a parent of a central. If I go to the next record for mat 2, it's a child of mat 1. They're all in the central hierarchy. So the way you do this, if I came in here and I went to advanced search and I said, show me everything that's under the central hierarchy, it would return those 3 records because everything's either a child or a grandchild of central. Okay. So in this field for reorder, you can't just click in there and type something. You have to go over here to the action called select reorder storeroom. You type it in here, and then when you say OK, it populates it. Okay. Okay, so when you hit this action, it changes this field. Okay. Right. So the other enhancement that goes along with this is, and they do kind of go hand in hand. If I go to item masters, now see I have this add items to multiple storerooms. And the cool thing about this is it does work from the list tab. So if I said, let me just get some items, I just said, give me anything that has an 01 in it, I can select those and select all records. And let's just say, I say that, you know, I can uncheck a few of these and I say all the ones that are selected, I want to add those to a storeroom or a set of storerooms. So I can say add items to multiple storerooms. And when I come in here, this list is empty, but if I say refresh, it'll show me all the storerooms that I have the right to access. if you go in here and you say, well, you know, I only want to add these, again, I only want to add these to a hierarchy, something in the hierarchy. So I want to say, just add them to central. When I refresh this list, it only shows me the hierarchy, the storerooms that are in the central hierarchy. So when I say okay, what it's going to do is go out here and create load list of storerooms and items if they're not already there. And I can check this and say okay, and it would create those records in those storerooms and populate them. Now, a couple things here to note. Add items to multiple storerooms. Say we want to go back into central. Refresh the list. Say okay. Before I load them, maybe I wanted to do something to each one of these. So if I open this up.
Folks, while he's working on his audio, I'm going to go ahead and try to talk you through what he's looking at here. So right now he's pulling up some new inventory options under the organization. So you now have the option to pick how many items are being created in inventory at once under your organizations. So that's what he's showing you right now, that list of 100 right there. So that's what he's got his set at right now. Okay, and so the next piece of it that we're going to look at, so in the latest version of Maximo, you have the ability to have push notifications. So you have the ability to send out push notifications into anywhere from Maximo. It does require setup inside of Maximo and then also inside of anywhere in WebSphere. But we'll look at the piece that's inside of Maximo. So Matt, if you want to head over to Maximo real quick for us.
You got it.
Thank you. There's actually an application here under administration, and it's called push notification administration, all the way at the bottom. So this application allows you to come in and set up the device types that you're going to send out push notifications to through anywhere. So right now I have a couple in there. I have one for Android, one for iOS. It comes with some provider configurations set up out of box. So if you'll go under common actions, provider configuration. So these are the three that it comes with out of box. We've got the Apple push notification, the Firebase cloud messaging, and we've got the IBM push notification. So if you want to hit cancel, we can use those three to set up our device types, and we can come in here and set them up so that we can send out our anywhere push notifications. So an example of that is maybe when a work order status gets changed, we can send out a push notification to the owner of that work order so that they get that on their device and they know that that status has been changed. If they are assigned something that's an emergency work order, we could send a push notification to their device to let them know that they've been assigned something that's emergency. It's just a way to send a notification directly to their device or anywhere to let them know that something has changed or they've been assigned something that they need to look at. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the ability to set or modify your e-signature key inside of Maximo. So e-signature has been around in Maximo for a while. It's the ability to require a password for some sort of change. So if you were going to put the system into admin mode, or if you were going to run a database configuration, or even for some sort of approval, it's just an extra layer to require the user to prove that they are who they say they are by putting in their password. So this e-signature key in the latest version of Maximo actually allows you to have a key for your e-signature that is separate from your user password. So if you want to come in and you want to actually change it so that you have your separate Maximo user password and then you have a specific password only for when you have to do an e-sig on something, that would be your e-signature key. If you don't currently know what your e-signature key is, what you can do is it can be reset by going into the user application and pulling up that user. And then over on the left-hand side under more actions, there is that reset e-signature key. So what that does is it sends an email to the email address associated with that user. And we can see at the top of the PowerPoint, it just says enclosed is your new e-sig key, and then it gives you an auto-generated key. So what you do once you get that is you go into your Start Center in Maximo, and then you go to your profile icon up in the top right corner, and you click on Set or Modify e-signature key. And that's where we get this Set or Modify e-signature key box. So Matt, if you want to log in as Max admin for me, please. And we'll check it out real quick. Okay, so once he gets logged in here, he's going to go up to his profile icon, and there's going to be that Set or Modify e-signature key. There we go. So we'll click that. So at this point, what you received in your email, the reset of the e-signature key, that would be your current. So you throw that in there, and then whatever you wanted your new to be, you would just put it here and then verify it, and then hit OK. And once that's set, your password is still the same for Maximo when you log in. That's not changed. But anytime you are doing some sort of e-signature inside of the system, this will be your new e-signature password. And you can go ahead and hit cancel, Matt.
With that, back to this presentation. I was saying we can, so the service requests can come into Maximo through an email if you set up the email listener for that and configured your Maximo system to receive those. And a lot of times people do cut and paste. Again, in previous versions of Maximo, what would happen is when you had those inline or embedded images, they would come across here, and then you'd have to kind of associate which ones went where. And if people put like logos and things like that in their emails, it was hard to tell which attachments mattered and which ones didn't. So now when you, with this new capability, when you receive it into Maximo, those images will be shown embedded just as the sender intended them for you to see them. Okay. And Jordan again, and Tori, just text me over on Teams if this goes out again. We'll just keep working through it. Okay. So again, you have to have your email listener enabled, receive and accept service requests through email. And these are the type of file extensions that you are supported in an embedded or inline mode. And then what you have to do is to get that behavior, you have to take this property in your system properties and set it to, it's by default, it's going to be on and enabled and set to 1, but you can disable it by setting it back to 0 and then doing a live refresh. Okay. So the next area just takes just a second to set up what's going on with that. It's more an advanced capability that IBM is looking at, and it has to do with this thing that you've heard of before, growing talk around digital twins. So just to set again the level playing field for everyone, a digital twin is a digital replica of a physical thing. It could be a pump, a whole power plant, a campus university, or in the picture I've got here, it could be an offshore platform. And there's different kinds of twins, right? There's operational twins, simulation twins, one's for insurance, one for compliance. The thing to realize here is that IBM has something called an IBM Digital Twin Exchange, and it is a buy-sell site for people wanting to offer and people wanting to buy digital content that they need for their system. So there's a lot of them that are out there already. And these are the kinds of things that IBM's promoting to put up there. Bills of material, maintenance manuals, maintenance job plans, CAD files, inventory, parts lists and whatnot, failure codes. And so the way this works, let me just get back over here into Maximo, is if I go here, for example, just log into the Digital Twin Exchange. And the way that basically works is you can look for something out there. IBM put out there for me just a sample. And this sample product here. So, that it was one of my favorites, and I did an add to cart, and then I went through a checkout process and basically ordered that. Now this one was zero cost. And once I do that, so here's where this matters. When I go into Maximo, under assets, you now have something in here called import digital data. When you hit that, you would put in your Maximo or your login, the digital twin. And then when you hit import data, it would show you all the products that you've purchased. And then when you would import them, for example, when I did that to this piece, got this one right here to sample product. So it imported that asset and also imported 4 spare parts. It put all those in item or in my item master. It also attached two job plans that were brought in. So with one click of the button, it brought in the asset, it brought in the spare parts with it. It could also have the sub-assemblies or nested assets, and it brought in the job plans. And so again, what you'll see is IBM, as well as our parent company, Bentley, really talking more and more about digital twins and the importance of that. And now Maximo, in this latest release, has the ability to, under assets, import digital data right here. Okay, so that's the note on that. Again, I think it's got limited capability right now, but it's going to be something that's going to see them getting a lot more popular. It's good. I don't see any. Tori and Jordan, you can hear me okay, right? We haven't blanked out again.
All good.
Good. So happy to hear that. One thing that to note is there's a system property called digital DT for digital twin endpoint, and this is where you put in the digital twin server name. And by default, it's already set up to the production instance of IBM's digital twin. If you were to do it for you wanting to go into their dev environment, you put DEV dot and then everything else in front of this, and then you would then be able to play around in their dev instance. But keep in mind, if it doesn't have a $0 on it, if it has a cost, it's going to charge the credit card you've put it up against. So make sure you, for testing purposes, you pull down a $0 one. Okay. Okay. Okay, so now we're getting into the next aspect where we're going to talk about what the enhancements were in 7.6.1.2 to Work Center applications. So we're going to talk about what's called the design mode for Work Centers. We're also going to then look at some administrative features they put in and built upon. And then for the technician, there's an application called Work Execution, which is a start center, a role-based start center. They've made enhancements to that. They've made enhancements to that and work supervision, and some that only apply to work supervision. And then Tori's going to be talking about the new Work Center enhancements for inventory and a new pick and stage capability, as well as barcoding. So with that, I'd like to just give a little guidance on where IBM's headed with these work centers. So it has been a major area of focus for IBM. In earlier releases, in 7.6.1.2, this release, and in previous releases, they used a technology called Google Polymer. That's what was under the hood. So IBM is replacing Google Polymer with a new technology based on something that you can Google up. It's called React Carbon Design and Carbon Design Components. And you'll hear IBM talking about this as graphite. I think that's a play on the carbon piece, but if you hear IBM in a presentation talk about that's on the graphite platform, it's this new technology they're using for work centers. So given that IBM is going to be making this transition to this new technology, we just like to apply a little guidance here that if you can use work centers as they are out of the box, do it, because they are good. But I would not invest a lot of time in configuring them and changing them, because the method in which you do that is going to change when they move from polymer to graphite. And once they, the other thing I'd say is my experience is they work best with chrome. They're designed to work with chrome. And some of the things that I tried to do with the designer, which we'll go into in a minute, by mistake, I was in a different browser. I think I was in Edge Chromium, which is not the same as Google Chrome. When I went into Chrome, Google Chrome, it worked fine. Other browsers, it did not. And the other thing I'd say is work centers will be much improved in terms of the consistency of the way they look and they appear to the end user once they get on the graphite product. So without further ado, I just wanted to back into my Maximo. And what I did on my start center, that's Maximo admin. I'm going to sign out and sign back in as me. So on my start center, what I did was I kind of did two favorite application areas. One that were just called my classic applications, and then down here, my favorite Maximo Work Center applications. Now, when you go in and do this for the first time, you can choose. Do you want Maximo Classic applications or Maximo Work Centers, and tools and tasks? And you can't mix and match them. So you can't put, go back to the Start Center. I could not, once I put Work Centers in one of these favorites, I couldn't add a Classic. I couldn't add assets down here. But that's okay. This is a pretty clean way to do it. So I just wanted to, so as I come in here, I'll be working off of this set of favorites. So first thing we'll talk about is some of the administration things right here. Yep, so they have something that's now called this design mode. So let's just go into work execution and I'll show you what that is. Now in previous versions of Maximo, you could turn this on. The editor wasn't as mature, but you could turn on what I'm about to show you, which is a pencil, which is an edit icon. So when I go into Work Center here, so here, what you'll see is this pencil up here. And when I hit this pencil, it puts me into a design mode for Maximo on a work center. Tell you what, with the speed of my system here, I think it's just best that we keep things moving by reverting to the PowerPoint. That's why we have that as a backup. So let's just do that now, and then we'll come back to our system. Right here. Okay, so you'll see a pencil up here, and when you hit that pencil, design mode goes on. And what that would look like is, as you can click on, as you hover over things, you'll see a yellow box around them. And when you click on those, you can edit things like what the where clause would be on the records that are going to return to the card. Okay. Likewise, you can click on the entry on any one card and change the field content. So I'd be able to grab something here and drag it up and lay it on an existing field and replace it. Now, while that's good, what we couldn't do is to just drag and drop it in a blank area and add a new field. So if I had 7 fields up there, I couldn't add an 8th. I could replace any one of the 7. Okay, so that worked. You can also change different headers, like where it said my work orders up here. If I wanted to say Matt's work orders, I can change headers like that. Then when you are done with the card, you hit this gear icon, which exits design mode, and then you have some save options, whether you want to just save the revision or actually you want to publish this as an active work center. And it can keep history on the edits that you've made to it. Again, it's a step in the right direction. It's not anything near what Application Designer is, but it's a move in the right direction. And I think IBM has kind of maybe held the development on a what you see is what you get editor for these start centers until they get over to this new graphite platform. Okay. There is a SIG option to put, when it says design work execution and design work supervision, there is a SIG option that turns on and off that capability. Okay. Okay, let's see if Maximo system's back now. Yeah, so I'm in this, so let's go back to our start center and I'll continue. So let's go into the administration piece. And so now the way you'd get to this in Maximo is you'd go to administration. So in Maximo, you have administration and then again, administration. And that's where I'm at right here when I come to this page. So it's really got two buttons on the side. One is for service request, another one is integration. We'll talk about that in a second. So for here, what you'll see is a new properties page, and you can set for service request configuration, you can set a reported priority default. So if they haven't said anything, any work requests that come through are going to be set to this priority. You can, if somebody says it's a high priority, you can set what that value is. You can also filter certain things based on the customer's site. Okay, so things like classifications and locations and assets, you would be able to filter based on their site. Okay. The other thing worth noting is if you hit this guest URL, so let's just say you had a large population of employees and you wanted to give everybody in your company the right to put in an observation or a service request. But you really didn't want everybody to be a registered Maximo user, even though they're free. You just wanted to have kind of a guest login. So now when you come into this guest login, the first time you come in, it's going to give you a URL. On that URL, you can make a QR code out of it. You could just put it up there under a link, and anybody that hits that would be able to come in and they'd be able to go right into a Maximo login screen for a guest and put in a service request. And so you can put in here things like who can put stuff in. Can it be anyone who works at a trusted company? So you could put in anybody at cohesivesolutions.com, or you could put in a specific list of people who are whose emails are valid. Okay, so now the one thing to note is this URL. When we clicked on it the first time, it's missing a slash after this before guest. It's missing a slash Maximo-X, then guest, and go on. So the URL that was put in there by IBM was wrong, but and I couldn't see where to fix it other than when we put in the Maximo-X and then went on with the rest of the string, it worked fine. Okay, so there's something to have a heads up on. The middle tab hasn't changed much, but this is where you can put in descriptions and set up categories. So for example, if you put in your category was pump, what's your subcategory, how did it fail, and what the issues were. And this really fills out your classifications and your ticket templates for service requests. Let me just log in here again. Yeah, so for example, here you can see I've got a list of people and with valid domains that who could put in a service request, or I could put in certain domains that are allowed. And then in the categories, this is what this would look like. So if I said swimming pool, this would say what the issues are. It could be a pump issue, and then what your issues are over here. So that's how that looks. So what that would look like to a guest user when they logged in to Maximo using that URL And why don't we do it this way real quick? Tell you what, in the interest of time, I think I'll skip that part. But basically, if I would log in, I would take me right to a guest user. I'd be able to fill that out and put in that service request right from there. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. And here you see an example of a QR code being created from that URL. This is what the login would look like to the guest. So I just log in right there and then be taken right into put in a service request. There's if you click on this other icon down here, you'll see a new tab called IoT Connector, and that's IBM's way of allowing you to connect to the Watson IoT platform, the Maximo monitor product, and another one they have in there is AT&T's Asset Management Operations Center. And it looks like you could add other services, although we have not worked with that yet. So back to Maximo, let's get to the next thing, which is the work execution piece. So if I go into work execution, show you a new feature in there. It allows you to do multiple assets and locations on a single work order. Before, work centers didn't support that. So it looks like I have 3 work orders due today. Jordan, just a quick audio check. Okay.
All good.
Okay, thank you. So here, for example, I have work with multiple assets. So I'll pull this work order up. And if I come down here, you can see that under the multiple assets and locations, I've got multiple assets on a single work order within a work technician's work center. And the take actions you see here depend on what else you've put into Maximo. So in this case, I don't have any meters on this motor for the circulating fan. So the only action I have is to report downtime, and I can put in the downtime, report it as down, and say save. If it's down, and this says report as up, I can flip it from down to up again. Okay. If something like this centrifugal pump has meters attached to it and maybe even inspections, you see more action. So I can come in here and I can take a meter reading right here off of the work center directly in Maximo, or I can launch an inspection, and that launches the Maximo inspection work center and takes me right into an inspection where I can begin that task and complete it. Okay. The other thing that they did, if I go back here, the work center, I'll just pull up another work order that I have that's due today. And one of the things that IBM has done is if you go to the plans and you look at the tasks, if you've put sequence numbers on your tasks inside of a job plan or right on a work order, those sequence numbers are now shown and made visible on a card. If you don't have it, it doesn't show up. It doesn't show the square or anything. But in this case, I have 8 tasks, and I've sequenced them 1 through 8, and so you can display and see the sequence numbers on the tab. That's a new capability. The other thing that you can do now inside of Maximo is you'd be able to come in here and actually classify an asset. So if I come down here to classifications, right here, I can hit this pencil and it'll pop up a window and allow me to classify that. So if I wanted to change the classification on something, I'd hit here and hit select, and I could change the classification. Or if there was no classification, I could have field users actually classifying some of this stuff for me as part of their work practice. Okay. The other thing that IBM did on these work centers was they used to have just a button up here called report work, and you could only do it, of course, on approved work orders or a synonym of approved. Now, if it is approved or a synonym of approved, they put report work on every every card. So I can come in here and I can go in and add time and report time for me. And here's the other thing they did. They are allowing you now to add time on behalf of others. So if Charlie did some work on this, I could hit this button. I could actually go pick them from the list. And by the way, this, if I had a craft selected, it would, if I had a craft selected down here, it would filter this list. So it would only show me the people and the labor records that are in that craft. And then I would be able to click them and report time for other people. Again, another new feature of 7.6. The last thing I'd probably want to point out here before we move on is this, that they now have the ability to, if a user is a member of a crew, now they can report, they can complete work on behalf of the crew. So any member of the crew can complete the work. And there's new SIG options to add, to do some of the things we just talked about. To add labor for another worker is right here. If you want them, if you don't want them to have that capability, you would uncheck this box and say the work execution, signature security and application, the e-SIGs. If you didn't want them to add classifications, you could change that there. So a lot of these things are now enabled by SIG options. In addition, right now, you can create from one of these work centers, you can create new work orders. And now there's an administrative parameter under work order options, site options, that allow you to pick what the default status is on that work order, whether it's going to be waiting approval or in progress. The other thing that mentioned, I'll just show you here. If I go to work orders, back here to my work center. So basically, what it looks like is this on the screen. It's got a little chain link. When you click that chain link, it would play the video or whatever URL you're pointing to. These things I think we already talked about, where if I'm in work supervision, I can add labor and assign labor. I can also assign crews. Again, not a capability you had in previous versions of Maximo. And now, Tori, I think we're ready for the inventory piece. So let's go into Maximo. You want me to just put the PowerPoint up first? Talk through it a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you. So there is the inventory management, the manage inventory work center now allows you to pick and stage items. So you have the ability to walk through the picking and staging process and then issue them to the work orders that they've been requested for. So if you will, Matt, if you'll go ahead and go into the work center for me, please.
Absolutely. Just kill these other ones. Second, got it right here. Okay, is Maximo Matt?
Yeah, that's
or
fine.
Max? Okay.
So what you'll do is you're just going to go to inventory and then manage inventory or under the work center. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so we see the date default to today, so that's why we're only seeing a couple. If we were to change that date, we would see other ones, but we're going to leave it here. So these are both some reservations. So these parts have been requested. We can see they've been requested on a work order. There's a work order number there. And we can see on the right-hand side the quantity that's been requested for both of these parts, 5 and 4 for each one. So we want to go ahead and create a pick list for these parts so that our store clerk can pick these parts, can stage these parts, and then can issue these parts. So what we're going to do is we're going to check the box on the left side of both of those reservations. And we're going to go ahead and hit that create picks option. And we just need to give our pick list a description. Okay, we'll hit pick list. So now we've got this pick list that's been created for these parts. And we'll see, you can see at the top, there's open, picked, staged, issued, and review. So open, so that means that these reservations are still waiting. This pick list is here. It's been entered, but nothing's been done yet. It hasn't been picked. There's been no staging, no issuing. Picked means that it's been picked. It's not been pulled out of anything. You're getting ready to stage the part, but all you've done now is picked it. Staged means we've staged our part. There's, some storerooms have a specific shelf or a specific cart for staging parts. So if they do, you would be able to stage them and put them on that physical cart or shelf. And then once they've been issued, we'll see it in issued. And then review is just a history of any transaction of this pick list. So right now, both of these are open reservations. This pick list still hasn't been touched yet. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pick a couple of these parts. So if you will check the box, Matt, for that top part. So at this point, we can pick it, we can stage it, we can issue it, or we can actually remove it from our pick list. So if this part were, if we wanted to just go right ahead and we're going to stage this, we're pulling it off of our shelf, we're putting it in our staging area, we're going to go ahead and hit stage selected. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So at this point, we can stage a different amount than our quantity requested. So if we were only going to be able to stage 2 of these and not all 5, we could change our quantity here if we wanted to. We're going to go ahead and let's go ahead and just stage the 2 of them. So we'll go ahead and hit stage. Okay, so we still see that there are 3 open for this part, but if you look to the right a little bit from that 3, there are 2 that have been staged. So we've staged 2 of these, we still need 3 more. We also, if you were just issuing this directly to like the maintenance tech, if they came to the storeroom and said, okay, I'm here to pick up my parts for this work order, you could just click on your part, click issue selected, and then issue it, hand over the part, and be done with it. So what we're going to do is let's check the box for the bottom one, and we're going to stage it, and then we're going to issue it. So go ahead and stage selected, and we'll stage all 4. So notice that it took that part off of our open list, and if you go to staged at the top, so now all 4 have been staged for that part. And so let's go ahead and issue those 4. So we check the box and then issue selected. And we're going to issue all 4 of them. And now all 4 of them have been issued. So we can go to issued, and we'll see that part under our issued section. And then if you'll check the box for me on the left, Matt.
This one?
Yep, right there. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then there's a return selected option. So if these 4 parts were not used, if the maintenance tech came and got these and then brought them back and said I didn't actually need them, we can return the parts here. So if you'll hit return selected for me. We can return all of them. If they only brought back 2 or 1 or any other quantity, we could change that. So we'll go ahead and say they just brought back 2 of them. So when we issued out all 4 were pulled out of our inventory. The balance on inventory changed, minus those 4, and then we just returned 2. So we put 2 back into our inventory. Okay, so that's it for the picking and staging piece of it. The other piece is the barcode piece. So if you just want to hit the back arrow up next to buy picks on the left, Matt, and then go to reservations. So in this manage inventory, you now have the ability to scan barcode directly from your work center. So that's over here on the right-hand side, that scanning option. So what it will do when you're on your device, when you click the scan icon, it's going to open up in your camera. And once you once you scan the barcode, it will make an audible sound to let you know that the barcode has been scanned.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, it puts a little frame around it, so it can show you that you're framing the barcode and native capability in Maximo. Okay. So let's just go back. I think we covered that. We already covered design centers. And that's what we had to cover today. So again, I'll say that if you come up to this top, these were the items that we covered for Classic Maximo. These were the items that we covered for Work Center applications. And I would say it's a good release from IBM. Somebody that is on an older version of Maximo might be encouraged to move to this. Specifically, one of the things is the 600 plus APARs that have been addressed. So with that, we can open it up for questions. If you've been monitoring the chat window, Jordan.
Yep. I'll just roll through these questions and then I will give you guys the opportunity to raise your hand and unmute your mic. We appreciate y'all sticking with us through the technical difficulties, but really hope that y'all still found the presentation helpful. So here we go with the questions. The first one is the multi-attachment option available in the other apps, including work order, incidents, etc.?
Any place you see that little paper clip in a classic application, Maximo application, you'll have the capability to select multiple attachments.
Awesome. All right, the next one we had come in asks, if you set a child storeroom to reorder from parent, the PO would be raised against parent storeroom. So when you receive the PO into parent, do you need to transfer items to child?
I don't think so, but we'll research that and give it a test and follow up with whoever made whoever submitted the question.
Sure. If you have a third-party app for mobile, can you use the push notifications feature?
Tori, have you?
The push notifications are just for anywhere.
Okay. Just for anywhere. All right. When you import digital data, can you exclude parts of it, say if you didn't want to use the job plan?
I think you would, it imports it and then you'd have to delete it before you put the job plan in play. When you hit the go button and you suck in that digital data, it's going to bring it all in. There was no filter on what was brought in. It was what was ever in the delivery package is what you're getting, and then you'd have to adjust it in Maximo after it's imported.
All right, and then the last one we have is, when will Graphite be rolled out?
Graphite, IBM's working on it now. The first one that's coming out, I believe, is going to be on the inspection, an inspection form application. I would look for them probably in about March of 2021, and we'll get the latest roadmap from IBM and share that if that changes. But I believe it's going to be in the spring of 2021.
Okay, so a few more rolling in here. Can you view the digital twin record in something like BIM Viewer inside of Maximo?
You're supposed to be able to, but we have not tried that. So we haven't, in the early time, in the short time that I've had 7.6.1.2, I haven't imported a Kobe file for BIM or brought one in through the digital twin. So I'm not sure if you can view it. I would suspect so, but I've not tried it. So I wouldn't want to say yes until I get that experience.
All right, and last one, as of now, can you view your assets on the map tab?
You can view your assets on the map tab, assuming that you have connected either Google Maps, Bing Maps to Maximo and have put a service address in and associated that service address with the asset or location. Then you can view those assets on the map. If you have Esri, a GIS system like Esri ArcGIS, then you can do it that way as well. But you wouldn't have to have a service address if you're using it on Esri. It would just store it against the lat long on the feature of the asset. So you can do it. Yes, you can see assets on the map tab, but there's some setup to do it, and it's not difficult. if somebody wants to reach out to me in an email, I'll show them how that's done.
All right. That's all the questions I have on my end.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for joining. Thank you, Tori and Jordan, for your participation. We'll put this up, and again, we apologize for the audio trouble. I can't really explain it, so we'll just put it on COVID for now. So thanks again. Stay safe and stay well. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everyone.